the place where singles shine, celebrating life, divine by design, faith and love, we intertwine. Route 77, when your journey's prime.
Welcome to the Route 77 podcast. Today we're tackling a topic that seems to be all over social media: red flags. From TikTok trends labeling women over 30 as red flags to deeper issues like emotional manipulation and dishonesty. We'll separate fact from fiction and discuss what truly matters when evaluating relationships. What should we actually look out for, and how can we approach this from a biblical perspective? Stick around as we unpack the stereotypes, the real concerns, and how grace plays a role in all of it. Welcome to the Route 77 podcast. I'm your host, Natasha, and I am here with Monique. And unfortunately, no David. It's just the way the schedule worked out this week. He was not able to join us, but he should be here next week. Hopefully, we keep our schedule. Things happen.
Yeah. And we were like, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I was sick the entire weekend. So that kind of put a kibosh on us.
And I had sick with the nerve pain. So I couldn't think beyond
The pain.
anything,
Yeah.
the pain. So it would have been a very sad podcast if I had tried. David would have had to pull the whole thing.
Yeah. You would have me kind of like wiping my eye. Like, I can't
You're
get
right,
out.
your nose.
I can't get out the clock.
Keep pressing them, the mute button.
Where's my box of Kleenex? So, I mean, it's still like the congestion is still there, but it's not like, it's just the irritation. It's not anything that's so.
Yeah. So I was flipping through TikTok, trying to see anybody that's talking about singleness. And so a couple of times I saw this pop up, and I know that some people were actually like speaking out against this ideal, but it was popping up a few too many times that people are saying, if you see a woman who is over 25 or over 30 or over 35 or whatever, they add the different dates, then that's single, then it's a red flag that she's single at that age.
They used to say that about guys too when I was younger.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
For some reason, they don't say that about guys as much.
They
But
did
that
when I was younger.
Yeah.
If the guy was still single and he was like 35 or something like that, there's something wrong with him.
Well, then you think like, oh, is he gay?
Oh, that too. Yes.
Because like then at that age, at that time especially, it was like not okay to come out and all that type of stuff. And then I don't know, there's something anyway. So we just want to talk about like, is that truly a red flag if somebody's not married by X number, whether male or female?
And what are
And also
real?
what are real red flags? So you might know the answer just by how sarcastic we're being.
Yeah.
Now, I think you can see, like, I think it has less to do with the age of the person and more to do with maybe the amount of relationships they've had. Like, if a person's had multiple relationships and are still single, or have had multiple engagements and are still single, or have not been married, or have been married or divorced, whatever, that can be a red flag. Because that's my ex. He had been engaged like 4 times, and he was like he was divorced once. So
Yeah.
it seemed like
mine-
always when it came up to almost getting married, and then they would like she would be the problem and break it off.
And mine was a serial dater. That's what we call them. When they date or when they date and things like the way they talk about the relationship. Because I remember he was talking about this one relationship that he had with this one lady who had kids. And he actually was able to convince her to give up her kids so that she would be with him. And I was just like that wasn't a huge red flag for you? I asked myself going, so you went, oh yeah, wow, she was crazy.
I know it's amazing.
It's like
how
you sit going, why wasn't she stronger? And then I look at my reaction to him in the relationship, and I'm going, yeah, I wasn't stronger either. I'm just as culpable.
And we can have, we can have like a whole other podcast on abuse and like what that is, what it looks like, and what it is psychologically, like what's going in the person that's being abused, what's going on there. But if we just look at the red flag part,
Let's try
And
to avoid the bad relationship first.
yeah, I don't think you can say if a person's not in a relationship, like a serious relationship by X age, then that's a red flag. I don't think that in itself is a red flag. Like I wouldn't be like, oh, they're 45, never been in a relationship, serious relationship. Next, like swipe. Like that wouldn't be, not that I'm into Tinder or swiping right, but I wouldn't be like instantly like swiping right because, or swiping left. I don't know which one means that you want
I
to
don't
be
I
with
don't I
person in
don't
Tinder,
either.
whatever. But I wouldn't swipe them away because of that. That would not be like, it would perhaps be in a list of things if, again, like I said, like multiple relationships and they still aren't in it and they've never been in a serious relationship, but they've been in multiple relationships. Now that might weigh in on as a red flag, but I wouldn't just be like, oh, they're 37 and never been in a serious relationship. Boop. Like, nope, red flag.
Yeah, because you don't know what they've been doing in that point of time in their adulthood from the time they left home to the time you met them at that age.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have been, maybe they've been they've been concentrating on their schooling. That's
Yeah.
legitimate.
Well, even like my ex, like he was sick with cancer when he was 18 and it took until his like mid 20s to actually recover. Like that can happen to people. You don't know. They've been through something that's like they don't have any wherewithal to date.
Yeah. Yeah. For a woman, if you meet a guy, and this is, I can, this is important. If he is not gainfully employed for a substantial amount of time, maybe he's on welfare, maybe he's just between jobs, that might require a little bit more looking into, because
For a woman too, I think, because like if you're consistently not able to stay with a job, like one thing my ex could never seem to get by the 3-month probation period. I think he did it like one time and he ended up leaving that job on his own because of the amount of driving. He just couldn't keep up with it. But like he could never work for somebody else for any more than 3 months generally.
yeah. So
That can be a red flag. Like, hey, wait, you've had how many jobs and you've lasted like how long? Have you had like been with a job for a significant amount of time, or are you constantly bouncing around? And then seeing what they say to why. And it's usually always, if you have a person who's an abuser or whatever, they're usually always, it's the other person's fault. Like, oh, that boss was crazy. They didn't know how to run the thing, even though they've been running the company for 30 years, but they don't know what they're doing. Like it's always about the other person not knowing what they're doing. And you're like, okay, maybe you might end up with like one boss like that, but like consecutively.
yeah. See, and then you've got the flip side, and this is where where you can see where character is. And I know you and I have gone into that same situation where we have gone to our respective bosses because we wanted to switch jobs. Both of our bosses kind of went, "No, you can't leave. What can we do to keep you?"
Yeah.
And
Well, I remember like my one boss was like full time or no time when I said I'd go part time. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll quit then. And then it was just like, oh, wait, this might not be a good idea. And then they asked me to come part time. So sometimes you have to call it out. But I was willing to leave
yeah,
not because I wanted to force them to do what I wanted, but it wouldn't fit in what I was doing.
yeah, because
And
you're
I was
already
willing
full
to be part.
time with that.
Yeah, like I was willing to be part time to help them out, but but if that's not what they needed, then I was willing to leave.
And for me, it was part time, and I didn't want to leave the job that I was at. I just wanted to cut back on a little bit of my hours so that I could, so that because I needed the extra money. And they were so worried that I was going to quit that they actually said, "So how much are you making? Let's give you a bit of a raise." Now I have actually lost that second job, and they kept asking me, "So is this going to go full time? Like, are you going to be leaving us?" And I'm just like, I can't tell you that. I cannot see into the future to know what's going to happen. We have to meet a certain requirement. And if we can get there, that's a whole different story. But right now we're not even halfway there. And so I says, I can't give you that information. And as it turned out, we never did get that. And they had to let me go. So then I went back to my other job and went full time. And then, the boss says, well, I don't know if we can afford to keep you on full time. So I don't know if you need to, look for another part-time job or something. And I was like, okay. So I was starting looking for a part-time job. And he says, so by the way, we don't want you to look for another job. We want you to stay with us. You'll go full-time. It's like, so I've been with this company for 16 years. But the problem is that I don't know if it's the economy or what, but they just can't give consistent raises to their employees to help them in this economy that we're having right now. So this is a struggle that I'm having right now about should I stay or should I go? And that's a song. If you didn't hear it,
It's already in my head.
I'm
It's in my
sorry.
head.
So yeah,
But yeah, like it's just like you don't know, and then you're looking at things like this isn't just about relationship, like significant other red flags. It can be boss red flags. It can be coworker red flags. It can be
friend red flags.
other red any red flags with
Yeah.
any people, any relationship. So it's good to be like, okay, is this person taking advantage of me? Like, am I just so worried about losing this job that I'll willingly take anything that they're going to tell me?
Yeah.
Or like you find out sometimes when you're willing to leave that, wait a second, they do want you to stay. And it's not, again, it's not about manipulating them into doing something for you, but it's just being willing to be like, honestly, with this X and X, I can't stay here.
Right.
And then you're willing to draw that line and be like, I have to go look for somewhere else and not just be so afraid of losing out that you just accept anything. And sometimes bosses or companies need to realize that you had that line. And again, this could be like a whole episode about boundaries, but these are all little episodes we can have. I think we should have a boundaries episode because that's good.
Yeah.
But right now, it's just
still
like
one of my
seeing
struggles.
those red flags.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. But it's like seeing those red flags.
Yeah.
So again, like age of being single should not be a red flag. I don't think. Again, not a swipeable, instantaneous swipe going, oh, they've never had. Because I was like 30 before I had a relationship with my ex. Well, 29 going on to 30 with a couple months from being 30. And it was not for lack of desire to be in a relationship. Like I wanted to be married. So it wasn't like it was just trying to find somebody was so hard. And I think people shouldn't be penalized if they had other priorities or if they just couldn't find someone that they wanted to date or like anything. It's because they're a certain age. Yeah, like you said, it could have been that they were doing other things, which hopefully they were.
Yeah.
That they're actually using their singleness for what they need, what it's for is actually like doing things, not just sitting there trying to find a spouse or trying to find a significant other.
And this is why it's really good to not just all of a sudden, like when you meet somebody, attach yourself to them. Don't be a vine. I caught that in the show I was watching. It's like, I find you very interesting because first off, you're not a vine, and I'm like, that's a really good lie. Because a lot of times when we meet somebody and we like them, we just want to hang on to them. We just want to wrap ourselves around them like we're creeping something or other and not let them go. But you gotta find out who they are. You want to know their character because there are so many things that you can find out about a person just by getting to know them on a platonic friendship level.
Exactly. And so if we look at things like a lot of times, and I've seen it on some of these singles one, that men will consider women having a red flag if they choose to pursue a career. If they're like fully pursuing the career, not just doing a job.
Like a doctor or a lawyer.
But even investing themselves in whatever it is that they're doing with the idea that they will move up the corporate ladder or move up whatever ladder is within that infrastructure. And then they see it like, oh, they're trying to be the man. And you're like, is that really the man's job is just to have a job? Or perhaps it's the man's job to see that the family is provided for and having the wife working may be part of that.
I used to get told all the time that I was intimidating to guys because I was smart. And so I would dumb myself down in order to not let the guys feel intimidated, not realizing that I was picking idiots instead of picking something.
That's a red flag. If you can't be yourself and if you have to dumb yourself down for a person,
that's a big red.
That's a big red flag.
That's a red flag. Not.
It's like that guy who like on Facebook, he just like runs back and forth with this giant red flag and he's talking about the red flags. Like I see it so many times because they'll be like somebody will say something like they'll be like he'll like read thing and then this like a woman or a man will say something that's big red flag and then he'll run like
Well,
this
the red
massive red
flag.
flag across the field
I
back
need to
and forth.
find that because when I go on X, I may be in that higher age bracket, but I like social media. I like reading the kind of stupid stuff that people say, and the amount of bots is ridiculous on X. They really need to fix that. But there are times where I sit there going, I can't believe they're talking like that. What is wrong with you people? You know.
I know. It's
So
just
I need to find that. I never thought of that. I should get that person running with the red flag. That's pretty cool.
because he's funny when he does those things. But that's what they could say, like, oh, a woman who's pursuing a career is a red flag. I'm like, no, sir, you are the red flag if you're being like,
Yeah.
and I think that like there can be times when people disparage a stay-at-home mom or being a wife, a stay-at-home mom, and like, or yeah, like they can disparage it, and yeah, that's a red flag if you're saying that that person is like, oh, they can do so much better than just being a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah,
Just
that's
like it goes both ways. There's people who desire one thing,
uh-huh.
and it's so funny because we live in this society that says we're supposed to have choice, like pro-choice. And yet, if a woman chooses to stay home and be a mom or chooses to have like 8 kids, they're looked down upon. And you're like,
But I thought it was pro-choice, that this is my
I know
choice.
that the choice is that you don't have children, you can abort those children, but not that you could actually have a bunch of children and be a stay-at-home mom. It's just like
It's a double
you
standard.
can't both ways. Yeah,
Is
you can't
is
have it both ways.
we should have had a red flag for this episode.
I know. I feel
Bro.
like I'm looking around. I have no red flags. I was like, I have a
I
handkerchief
don't have a
somewhere.
red flag.
Maybe I'll go look. I think I have a red flag.
I have a red pot. Red pot? Does a red pot work? Can I wave it like a flag? I can't turn it upside down because there's something in it.
Hey, here's a red.
Do you have a red flag?
Here's a red.
There we go. Red flag. There we go. Red flag. Red flag. I'm waving my red flag. It's a red flag. It's a red scarf.
There you go. Yeah, it's a red scarf, and I've got the Manchester scarf, but it's like a red flag. So it's our like, not that I'm against Manchester. They're fine. Manchester United is fine. But flag. We need to have a red flag.
This is our red flag episode. Oh,
Merry Christmas.
I'll just oh, this is red. It's redder on the other side. All right.
So yeah, so we see these things as being like, oh, it's just also there's a big one. There's a big red flag that what people think that says is the big red flag. It's men that still live with their parents.
That's ridiculous.
It depends.
Yes.
It depends.
Because in this day and age, when you can't even afford rent, you can't afford to buy your own house, where are you going to live? A lot of kids, even like they choose to stay and live with their parents for whatever reason. Like I have a single brother, he's gay, but don't hold that against him because he's a great kid. He decided that rather than moving out and finding his own place, he was going to stay at home and live with mom in her old age because she was 40 when she had my brother. So now he's 35. So now she is, in her late 70s. And he just didn't feel comfortable leaving her to live alone in this big house by herself. So he lives with her. He helps with maintenance. He helps with security. He helps with cost. He takes her to her appointments when she has doctor's appointments. So sometimes it's just like, so do you have a halo on your head or something?
But sometimes too, like
yes.
yeah, it's to do with today's economy. Like it's just and
And we know that because we
save-
could barely
yeah.
afford our own house, which is ridiculous. It wasn't like that when we
And-
first moved in.
No, it's getting more and more expensive. And so can you really blame a person? So that's not an initial red flag,
No.
I don't think. Like it won't be a swipeable red flag. But what are they doing? Are they holding down a job? Are
Exactly.
they cooking at times? Or are they just letting their mom do everything? Are they doing their own laundry? Are they doing are you actually living? Or are you like maybe your mom does dinner and you have dinner together, but are you like helping out? Or are you just letting your mom or your dad do everything for you?
Yeah. Like Dan, he has a really good job because he does computer programming and he works with this company that does security. So he actually sometimes gets sent to the other offices across Canada in order to fix their security issues. So like he's not poor by any stretch of the imagination. So he helps pay for bills, he helps pay for food, he helps pay for maintenance, and you know, and it's a relief on us other kids because I live in a different province. I have my special needs daughter. I can't leave her behind, and I can't take
Mhm.
her with me because I know that the people who care for her, they don't want to move to Alberta. They have their family here, and I don't want to uproot Amber and move her in with a different family. And I don't have the skills to take care of her complex needs. So
Yeah.
for me to move back to Calgary is just not an option. And my other brothers, well, my one brother, he's got his wife and kids, and my other brother, he's got his own life and stuff that he does too. And and the other one lives in Japan with his wife and daughter. So for us that Daniel is doing this for my mom, a
Mhm.
huge relief for the rest of us because we know that he's taking good care of her. We don't have to worry about her.
So it feels like you can maybe think about it and be like, okay, they're living with their parents. Okay, let's dig a little deeper. And then you can see whether or not, like, I don't think that living with your parents anymore at this day and age is a red flag
No.
because there's the stereotype living in the basement and playing video games all day. Now, playing video games over excessively might be a red flag. Just like anything on this day and age, it's become more of a thing that video games are becoming more addictive. And so, yes, you should look at the amount of video game playing. There's some days I will play a lot, but I will be honest, in the last 2 weeks, I basically played maybe 1 hour in the entire 2 weeks because of all the stuff that I had to do.
Yeah, starting your own little side business.
And then school and then
Go
the gala coming up for Taekwondo.
gala.
Like I'm doing a lot of extra videos for Taekwondo as well. So like I don't have the time.
Yeah, is
So
that like
yes, I played
because like you were gone like for 12 hours. I'm just like, oh, she should be home like never. Maybe she's not going
never.
home.
Yeah.
I've been allowed
With like
to take
so
her in the
long.
house all by myself. Yes, I was sick and whiny and so like there's nobody home to whine. That's
So
all.
yeah, like I think that when the amount of video games a man or woman plays can be a red flag. It doesn't mean that that's what something they do in their downtime. Like that's their hobby, just like some people like to garden or some people like to knit or read books or like you're allowed to have a hobby and video games is a legitimate hobby because sometimes people say it like it's a kid's thing and it's not legitimate. You should be doing something else.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like I do a lot of physical stuff. Even though I drive a lot for my one job, I'm doing physical stuff the entire time. When I do Taekwondo, I'm around people the entire time and I'm walking and walking and walking and showing and always working, working, working. When I just want to be in my own little space. I don't like being cold or wet or too hot. And I have to be out in the cold and wet and heat in my other job. So when I'm off, I just like to be dry and warm or cool and quiet, no people. Like it's just my downtime.
Yep. Yep. I had too much downtime because I was sick. I'm sick of it. I need to go back to work. It's when you're sick, you don't always know, realize, but staying home consistently for me, it's not good for me. I can't deal with it.
Mhm.
I can't stand it. Like today, I mean, today was a normal day off anyways, because my office isn't open today, but it was just like, all right, now that I'm feeling better, I have had enough of just staying at home. I need to go and do something. And it's not
Yeah.
like I didn't do anything while I was home because, I
No,
did.
and you're allowed to be sick and recuperating is part of being is what you're doing. So here's some like actual red flags. So first we'll look at emotional manipulation or control, gaslighting, excessive jealousy, or isolation from friends and family.
I hate that.
And these things are subtle
Ooh,
and they're easier to see in other people, like it happening to your friends or family members, than it is that just seeing it happen to you. Because it's very big red flag.
Mhm.
Or you just try cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to blow
But
up
it's cool with the red flag. But yeah, but it's very hard. I can see it looking back, like very little red flags all over the place, like flag in the play, flag in the play,
Yep.
all over the place. But I was really good at talking it away
Yes.
or finding a reason
Yes.
why it wasn't what I thought it was or whatever.
Yeah. Because you needed to have that relationship. You were too scared that if this might be my only chance, I can fix this. No, you can't.
Yeah. And you love the person, like your emotions are involved. That's why people can see it from the outside. Their emotions aren't involved as much as yours. And so it's very hard to see, but
Is it love though?
gaslighting, and I think I loved my ex. I think I loved him,
Okay.
but but it changed over time. I don't anymore. But yeah, I was just, but I honestly, I don't know. I don't honestly think that narcissists know how to love, honestly. They have what they think is love.
Yeah. And you
I didn't.
yeah, and you can smell a narcissist a mile away if you're paying attention. Because
But they can still get you when you're not.
their
part-
their biggest thing is to shift blame onto you, and they're really good at it because they make it in such a way that you actually sit there going, "Oh, maybe it is my fault."
That's the gaslighting.
Oh, is that gas?
There's also, yeah, because it's like altering the truth so that you think you're going nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're the one with the weirdness.
And if you start
Another,
thinking, maybe I'm crazy.
that's gaslighting.
Red flag.
So another thing we talked about earlier, lack of accountability. It's never their fault. Now, sometimes things are not your fault and you do get treated poorly by people. Like that happens. But this is like every time it was the other person. So listening to that red flag. So it was like,
I like the
it
flag.
was like, yeah, object lesson. So it's like the other person, it was their ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend, or it was
Blaming
their
others.
boss, it was their coworkers, it was their other person at church. It was always the other person. They can never be right.
Hey, I like this. This is good.
People need to make sure they watch this one. Otherwise, we're just going to be called they won't get the visual of our flag.
We got a visual of the flag. Okay. You're good at this. Keep going and I'll just help with the flags.
Red flag.
Red flag.
Okay, so this one is, when I look back, I definitely see it. Inconsistency in faith, claiming to be a believer but showing no fruit of the spirit. Because they can say all the words that are right.
Oh yeah.
Like,
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And
And
he
they
was
just
like
be
that
like-
too. Oh, totally. Oh, totally. It's like, oh, red flag. Yeah. He even said, he accepted and he baptized and he had and baptism of the Spirit. He had all the right words. And then when it was time to go to church, I don't like the pastor. I don't like the church. I don't like what they're teaching. You're just holding them up on a pedestal.
it's just like, I know, it was like, it happened to me with my ex so many times. Like, he would even say like things like, oh, if people in a relationship and it starts to go bad for like the same person over and over, they have to start looking at themselves. Like he would admit that, but then he would be one with the multiple relationships, including now 2 divorces, but like he would say the right things, but nothing was coming out that way. And so it was just like, it's like he understood it at a theoretical level, but it was like he could not see it ever applying to himself. Like he didn't think it was weird because it was like he would understand, but like he would understand over there, but when it had to apply to him, it's like I don't see anything wrong. And you're just like, really?
Yeah, it's just like, oh, wow. Yeah. You're not allowed to do that kind of stuff. And you just kind of look at them kind of going, you.
I know. But yeah, so that's when dishonesty, patterns of lying and hiding things.
And it's
This
funny.
happens.
The father of my daughter, who I now realize was another one of those, and I let that go a lot too. That's probably where I started falling apart was with these red flags. I remember him telling me that there was one time in his life where he wasn't living with his mom, And this is where the story kept getting confused because at one point he was living in a cave, like, and this is in Calgary, okay? He was living in a cave on Princess Island Park because he got kicked out of the house. And then he was living in England with his grandparents. And that's how come he had a British accent. And I'm just like,
I know the timelines don't match.
no, they
It happened
never
with my
did.
ex too.
And then
Because he was doing this, and then he was doing this, and then when you bring it up, they're like, "How can you not believe me? How can you be untrusting and say I'm a liar?"
well, I went one step further as I asked his mother. And she said, he's not British. He's never been to England.
Yeah, I've asked some things too, like, "Oh, in England we don't do this," and I would like ask his sisters and be like, "Do you do this in England?" And they're like, "Yeah." But what's crazy is like you can literally like catch them in the lie and be like, "This is exactly word for word what happened," and they'll still claim that you're being the mean person by like not believing them, and you're like, I actually my like almost response, it's almost like a PTSD response, is that I am overly excessively honest, and I don't mean that in a good way. Well, I mean it is good to be honest, but what I mean is like I clarify things like
To the
super
nth degree.
specifically. Yeah, because like he would say things and then I like that were completely false, but so I'm like, "Oh, we donated like some money," and he'd be like, "Oh, we donated like hundreds of thousands of dollars or something," and I'd be like, "We donated like $10 like last Tuesday," or something. Like I'd be like very specific about things that I said because I was like trying to almost like, and not cover, but like compensate even in my own life. So I'd be like, "Last Tuesday at 3 p.m." instead of like last week we had a discussion. Like I had to be very specific, or we talked, and part of it had to do with the way he treated me if I wasn't specific, but part of it was just like I don't want to be lying to people, and so I'm just like no vagueness happening at all. Like here's the exact truth.
He would turn it on me and say, no, you said this. And I'm going, no, I know what I said. That's not what I
You could
said.
literally have a video of them saying things word for word, play it back to them, and it was still wrong. Like they would say you're lying, or that you're not, or you're being mean to them, or you're not believing them, or you could do that, and they were literally would have like
No.
it would.
Yep. Trying to call them on their stuff. So these are real red flags, people.
Yes.
Not this. She's not married yet. That's not a red flag.
Yeah. No. So next
Unless
one,
unless
addiction.
there's a really, oh yeah.
Struggles with unresolved substance abuse, pornography, or other harmful behaviors.
Oh, see, you just checked off every box of my ex. Alcoholic,
And let me
did
tell you,
drugs,
yeah,
had a pornography addiction, and had an anger issue because of all these addictions.
and I will say pornography addiction is a red flag. It's not a normal thing. Okay.
Yep.
Red flag. So if you're suffering from pornography addiction, you need to get help before you start pursuing a relationship.
Yeah.
Because that's a red flag in you, and you have to deal with them if you have red flags in yourself. And
If-
the world tries to tell you that this is a normal thing, and that it's normal to watch pornography, and it's normal for as a couple to enjoy watching pornography together. This is not normal.
No, it's not. That they've
You are
actually,
changing your brain.
yep, they have actually done studies and have shown that pornography will remap your brain, and to get off of a pornography addiction is worse than getting off of heroin.
So it's pretty bad. So
Bad.
do not believe society when they tell you it's normal for and it's not only guys, but whenever they make a joking pass about how it's normal for guys to be watching pornography, and it's just a normal everyday thing, and women will watch it too.
And do you know
No,
where
it's not
do you,
normal.
do you know where that saying came from? That it's a normal thing. It came from the pornography industry because it is a multi-billion, if not trillion
Billion.
dollar industry. They don't want to lose their money.
So
Don't.
if you want to watch a video, we can go on about pornography, but there's a documentary called Over 18, It is a Christian documentary, but they don't come at it from a Bible perspective. They show you the actual science and psychology and all the things that are going on involved in it. So they
Yeah.
actually do this. I would recommend Over 18. It's a documentary called Over 18, and it's really, really good. It really gives you an eye into the pornography. It actually talks to people who are actively involved and actually happily involved in the pornography industry, as well as psychologists and people and other people who have been addicted to it. So just something to people. So
And
pornography,
red flag. And alcoholism is also, and drug abuse are also really big red flags
video game addiction,
too.
it can happen.
Yep. My cousin's daughter just lost her fiance and the father of her daughter to a drug overdose. She thought she could help him get off of his drug addiction. You cannot save somebody. That is not your job. You are not their savior. There are
If you
treatment
see red flags,
that is your own
don't
red flag.
go with that.
Don't be a codependent person. And it's the same with alcoholism. If your date shows up, you smell alcohol on him, I would already start having that red flag going. I would have that kind of like, this is not a very good thing. Because number one, is he driving? And you smell alcohol? And then you get to wherever you're going out for dinner and he polishes off a few bottles of wine. I'm sorry. That's a big red flag. Because if he's doing that and he says, it's because I'm nervous.
Or she. Because it can happen both ways.
Because it could happen both ways. That's true. Very true. And you know, I'm not coming at this from a person who has never drank, because I have. Or a person who has never been drunk, because I have. Alcoholism also runs in my family. My dad's father died of throat cancer from drinking. My dad, until his arthritis and the medication, prevented him from drinking. And it even went into one of my brothers. So it's not like I'm a stranger to it. But there's something else that you need to know, that, you know, not every drunk person is a silly drunk. Some drunk people are very, very violent. Yeah. And the amount of times where you hear about people being beaten within an inch of their life because the person was smoking.
Red
drunk.
flags are not your job to fix unless you're a counselor and they're not in a relationship with them.
Yeah, that you're in a treatment, that you're the counselor at a treatment center and you are working with them to get them to be. But you know, there's more to these people, and you are worth more than being in a relationship with somebody like that. So
another one that is unwillingness to communicate. So avoiding meaningful conversations about future faith or commitment.
Yeah. A lot of times when people don't want to talk about that commitment thing, it's because they don't want a commitment thing.
Red flag.
Red flag.
And it could be reasons that are honest, like maybe they've had an abusive past, so they want to avoid that. But
you can't fix it.
That's something you can't fix it, and it's something that they have to come to terms with and go to counseling for and things like that. And should honestly, like, they should be taking themselves off the market, so to speak, until they can deal with that red flag.
Yeah. Why are they dating if they don't want to be in a committed relationship?
Because there's a lot more, like, there's so many other reasons that you're getting involved in relationships that are unhealthy.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not fair to you as a person, it's not fair to them to go through that. If they can get help and like then find a healthy relationship. Again, you're not there to fix the red flags.
Can you imagine
Okay.
you're 20 something and you're in a relationship with somebody who does not want to commit, but you're thinking about marriage and children and a house. And this person, let's just date for a couple of years, and and they string you in and get you hooked emotionally. And then 5 years goes by, 8 years goes by, 15 years goes by, and you're just like,
and a lot of times at this point, you're in a full relationship essentially with them. Yeah, you're having a sexual relationship, but there's no sort of commitment to it.
and you may even be living together, but there's no commitment. There's no I don't want children. I don't want,
But you think you're going to change them. Like, if I don't think saying you don't want children is a red flag.
as
But
long as you're
if
both in
you,
the same page about it.
yeah, you have to understand that don't go into something thinking the other person will change or that you can change them. That's a red flag in your own mind. Like, that should be a red flag to you.
Yeah. Here.
Thinking that you're going to change them, that's your red flag.
Uh,
Because they might change their mind. They might desire children eventually and be great parents. But if you go in thinking that it's okay, I'll like change their mind, or they'll figure it out as they get older, they'll settle down and want to change their mind. That's a red flag in your own mind. You're deciding things for them. You're a red flag.
Yeah.
You should be a red flag to, because you're making assumptions about changing other people.
Yeah.
And again, your only relationship that's changing other people is a counselor to a counselee.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only relationship. And that's not a relationship. That's the relationship between the two people is that they're counselor and the one being counseled,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
not a romantic relationship. So that's the only time you should be interacting in a sense, is that, or pastors and people or whatever, is that you're trying to deal with the red flags that you have in your own life.
And talking the faith one is very important as well, because if you're in a relationship, if you're dating somebody who says, "Oh yeah, I have faith," okay,
Yeah.
what kind of faith? Well, I believe in
Well,
God. Well, the
then it's
demons
asking the
believe in
question.
God.
Well, then it's about actually asking what people mean by what they say. So that way you're on the same page. Because if you're like, oh yeah, he believes in God, and then you realize that what he believes in is a different God than what you believe in.
Yes.
That's on you, in a sense that you haven't like had the discussion on whether or not like you're talking the same language.
Yep.
And then you can be like, what do you mean by you believe in God? And then they might say, oh, well, I received Christ as my Lord and Savior. And all, then you realize that you're talking the same language. Otherwise it might be like, oh, I believe in like that we are all gods and whatever. Yeah. But if you don't ask the questions, like you have to ask deeper questions, find out
Right.
what you're even though you're speaking the same language, you may not be speaking the same definition.
Right. Right. Because if you ask in some people who call themselves as Christian, they really are not. You ask like the Jehovah's Witness to tell you about Jesus Christ, and he is like the Archangel Michael, who what?
Have the
not-
conversations.
Yeah.
So you have to look for the red flags in your own heart. Like if you're not willing to have these conversations, it's like red flag in your own heart. Hey, wait a second.
And
And that's not on the other person, really.
And on that note, you should know your faith, because it's really, really easy to be deceived by somebody who is a good talker and a good manipulator, change how you're thinking, going through that with his dad, with their church.
Well, I mean, it's what we're told about unequally yoked. And it's usually the people that are unsaved that are drawing away the saved.
Yep.
And we saw that with Solomon and his wives. We see that so many times in the Bible that you get drawn away from the truth.
Well,
So like when we look,
so like with David's dad, they're church planters. Now his dad is all kind of not knowing what to do, since the pastor of the church that he's known for a whole lot of years has all of a sudden started talking universalism. So if you don't know your faith, if you're not, even though you may be a pastor, but if you are not certain of what you believe, you can fall into error thoughts.
so when we're looking at the red
good.
flags, we don't want to make it out like you're trying to find a perfect person. People sin, people make mistakes, errors in judgment. A single instance doesn't make a pattern. And what you're doing is you're looking for a pattern.
Yeah.
Okay. So like if they were trying to look good and they didn't tell 100% truth one time, we all do it. Okay. But when you're consistent,
No, all I eat are salads because I don't want to appear like I'm.
yeah. And so we sometimes put that, but I don't want you to be like, oh, they didn't tell the 100% truth at one time. That's fine. Get rid of them. Like that. It does. You start to bring it up and be like, is this a red flag in their lives? And then when you start to see it happening another time, second time, third time is a pattern.
Yep.
then you want to be like, so it doesn't mean you have to just throw everybody off because they've done something wrong one time. We're sinners. We're not perfect. People get angry. People fib, even though a lie is a lie. But if you like, does my butt look big in this? And they're like, what do I answer? But do these headphones make my cheeks look pretty?
If I
So-
if I stand like this, do I look skinnier?
So it just like, well, we want to look at them and be like, okay, we're not looking for perfect people.
No.
Like we're looking for a pattern of this. And so if somebody is always like, yeah, we'll get married one day, and it never comes, like that's a pattern of avoiding.
Yeah.
Or like there's a pattern of alcohol abuse as opposed to them having a glass of wine.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever. So you gotta like be wise, use like praying, use discernment, talking to people that love you and also know truth, like listening to them, not assuming that you can see every red flag, because we're really good at putting blinders or rose-colored glasses on to not see it.
And if you're not
Which would be-
sure, you can ask your friends. It's like, I have this. This happened the other day. What do you think?
Yeah.
Is red flag, or am I overthinking?
Yeah. So we need to look at, so one, you don't have to be like, hey, are we one day going to get married? Like that's pretty put it off at
Especially
the
on day
beginning.
one.
But
That's
you
your
could,
old red flag.
yeah, they're all red flag. The poor person's probably like, "Sorry." But you can ask like more intentional questions from the beginning. Like have a conversation about their faith at the beginning. I don't think there's anything wrong with that on the first date.
No, because you don't
To
you don't want
understand
to,
a faith.
yeah, because you don't want to get into a relationship with somebody who does not share your faith.
Yeah,
Because
so you don't have to like pussyfoot around that.
yeah.
You can check that out.
I had this conversation with this one lady because she was actually married to a guy. She says, yeah, I dated him. He didn't know the Lord. And then we got married and he still didn't know the Lord, but now he does know the Lord. And I'm just like, I thought you weren't supposed to marry somebody who
Wait,
didn't know the
what?
Lord.
And so,
That
so
doesn't
having
happen
intention,
very often.
yeah, no,
It's not a good
don't
way.
assume it will. So ask those questions, but also pay attention to how they treat others. How do they talk about past relationships? How is their relationship with their parents, with their siblings? How do they treat wait staff? How do they so seeing how they treat others
You know,
and how they refer to others can start to
here's a
Sure.
really good test if you're wondering to know what kind of temperament they have. Buy IKEA furniture and have him help put it together. If that doesn't do it to you,
yeah.
I've
like,
heard
there's
it's
lots of
changing
things
a
that you
tire
can-
will do the same thing.
It's trying to put a trailer on the back of the truck.
Oh, that too.
That was hard. Until we got the backup camera, saved everything. But yeah, but actually seeing what they're really now, people can have bad parents and bad siblings and have bad debt. It's not just immediate red flag. But if you notice, and also here's a question: do they have any friends that are more than a year or two old?
That too. Yeah. And if they have friends, what kind of friends are they? Like what kind of
Yeah.
influence do they have?
But even like with my ex, like his friends, like they had good friends, like they were good people, but he could never maintain friendships. And if we moved, he would like be like they never existed, and he'd like move on to the next people.
Oh.
And his family, like he would have nothing to do with his parents. He had nothing to do with his brother and sister or nephews or anything. It's like he just had zero feelings about them. And they were nice enough people and stuff. And like, I was fine with them. But it was like, unless they could do something for him, he didn't really have a use for them. And so it's like, you can see if they have any long-term relationships or not.
And alienating you from your friends.
Mm.
That's another. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting because like for myself, I don't think I have very many red flags. I might have a flag or two.
Is that a red flag? No.
But like my best friend Michelle, I've known her since I was 12 years old. I have another best friend, Shauna. I have known her since I was 6 years old, and we are still friends to this day. That's a long time to be friends with somebody. You and I have been friends since what, 2017? Yeah, because when
17,
when I started Taekwondo, and granted, we weren't friends yet, but we were
We know each
acquaintances.
other.
Yeah. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until Korea in 2019 that we're just kind of like, yeah, but
And then like David and
but
but see, like I wouldn't say I had like a ton of friends before that. Like I had one from university, but I haven't talked to her in like so long, except we're just on Facebook the random time. But like I've had friends over the years, but I mostly like was friends with my brothers. Like that was a big thing. I
Yeah.
didn't have a lot of friends, but my relationship with my family is fairly good.
Yeah.
And so like I am love my brothers. I love my family. I love my nieces and nephews. I can't like she hears about them so many times. She's like pictures, 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 pictures.
her
Here's this, here's that.
her nieces and nephews are just like the things and messages and they'll send her
Poems.
emojis like all night long. It's just like, oh my gosh, these kids.
Yeah.
It's terribly cute. Look at the picture
But
of my
yeah, so-
puppy.
Puppies and kids, and they sent me a poem that they wrote, and it's like so adorable, and I love them. But like, so my one was more family motivated, like for
Yeah.
relationships. But I did like make friends over there. But yeah, but it's my ex. Like you couldn't probably go back farther than when we had moved to whatever place we had, and we moved constantly in less than 2 years
Yeah.
usually. And if we moved, like that person was basically no longer out of sight, out of mind.
Right. Well, look at
'Cause
us.
They can't do anything for them.
Yeah.
So
We have technically been living together now for 4 years or 5 years.
going on to 5, I think,
Yeah.
this year.
Because December I think we need to
It's
renew.
4 years. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a 5 years because
Yep.
2020.
Yep. We've never had a fight. I don't know if you've been irritated with me. Maybe.
The closest I've been irritated is usually because it's the time of the month and it has absolutely zero thing to do with anything of reality. Like it means
I'm over
nothing
that.
because when you think about it, you're like,
But but we never get into like snarky comments to each other or anything like that. I think we just kind of like, is this something to be irritated about? No, not really. Right then.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and if we need
About,
if we need time out or whatever, not that you've got your
even that is just like
Yeah.
we just do our thing.
we just
and
do
we're
our
just
thing.
like,
So it's never been yeah. They
So,
they
yeah,
usually
so that-
because they usually say that regardless of the relationship, the first 7 years are usually the most telling of how the relationship is going to be.
I think like the first year there's usually a thing, and then like year 5 or 7, and then 12 or something. Is
Our
supposed to be, like, bigger,
our
but-
first 6 months was a lot of kind of like, okay, who are you, and then what are you all about, and scaring each other by because like, okay, and then laughing stupidly over the funniest thing.
everything
Yeah.
like yeah, our relationship's only gotten stronger, and so it's just like so yeah.
More like sisters than anything else now. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like weird to think about being around without you here. Like be weird,
I know.
but be like wrong, be like missing something.
The house feels so empty.
But you're right. So yeah. So
When you
Yep.
when you went to, I think in our first year, you went to Ontario for a couple of weeks. I think around the winter time. Is it our first or second year? So I was kind of in the house by myself, or like you took the dog to the farm, so I just had the cat and me in the house, and it was very weird because I was used to being in the apartment, and the apartment you felt more, because it was more like a box.
contained or whatever.
Yeah, you felt
Yeah.
more contained. This was bigger, which is like, am I safe here?
Yeah.
All by myself.
It was the same when you went to your family in Calgary because I think Carly was away and you were away, and it was like so weird here on my own.
You had the dog.
So yeah. Yeah. And the cats. But it was also over New Year's Eve, and so the fireworks were scaring him, so he was downstairs cowering. It was like a weird night.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, if you're looking around, like, yeah, think about the red flags, not just in other people, but look and see if there's any red flags in yourself.
Right.
Because again, should be not getting in a relationship if you've got some serious red flags.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should be getting help.
Right. And ultimately, prayer really does work when it comes to relationships, because God can give you it's just about every, Lord, just give discernment about this relationship. And if it is really wrong for me, can you let me know and be open to hearing that? Because
You have to be open.
because
That's the
yeah,
problem.
see, the thing is that it may not be God going, no, this is about relationships. Anyway, you may hear it just from other people kind of going,
It's from your friends and family and you not listening to them. Voice of experience.
listen to your family. If your family is saying, are you sure you want to be in this relationship? Ask them why they're asking you that question. Like, why are you asking me this question? Because I really want to know, because if this is something that I need to pay attention to, I want to know why. And a lot of times they say you've got those these are rose-colored glasses. See the frames? They're rose-colored.
I've got the red ones for sunglasses.
You do not want to be wearing the kind of rose-colored glasses where everything is tinged.
Where you can't see the red flag. And it can happen so quickly, okay? So
Yep.
look for your own red flags. And if you're not listening to people who love you,
That's a red flag. That's your own red flag.
yes, your own, and then there's others. So hopefully we've helped you see some red flags in maybe your past experiences or maybe even within yourself, and help you see that there's like look for ones that are possibly in the future. So just kind of keep an eye on that and really ask yourself, if you're making excuses or finding reasons for certain types of behavior and stuff, like ask yourself, is this just a one-off and you're trying to figure out why this person was yelling at you one day and you're like, maybe they just had a really bad day and it never really happens again. That's one thing. But if it's like constantly, then you're like, okay, wait a second. Like, am I just making excuses for this, or is this actually the thing?
And check your heart and gut reactions as well, because they will not lie to you. If you find yourself like you have to be extra cautious around that person, if you find yourself, I just feel like, if I say the wrong thing, all of a sudden I'm so careful with what I have to say.
Eggshells,
Eggshell,
tension, but that's another podcast.
anxiety. So yes, we probably do need to do that kind of a.
The abuse one. Yeah. We can perhaps do the boundaries and abuse one's coming up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I actually have a really good book on boundaries. I don't know if you've read it, by Dr. Smalley. It's a very good book. They've actually
So-
written many books on boundaries because it is a very big issue with us human beings. We want to leave our gates wide open and let everything in, but the gates are there for a reason.
and offenses. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, next time we'll have a conversation about boundaries. So if you want to hear about that, make sure you join us next time. And if you don't, that might be a red flag.
I don't want to hear about boundaries. Plenty of boundaries.
And also,
I'll
if you
keep the
don't
whole
listen to our
world out.
podcast, if you don't listen to our podcast, red flag.
Yep, red flag.
Make sure you listen to our podcast. Well, Lee, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you enjoyed, you heard something that would be beneficial for you. And
Hope you
that
enjoyed
maybe
our
you
red
can-
flags.
Yes, our red flags. And that you can pass along this podcast to anybody who might benefit from it. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment or a review. That would be awesome.
And can I say the Bible
Yep.
verse before you go?
Yes, you can.
Philippians, and this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ. Amen.
Amen. And we'll see you all here next time.
Bye for now.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Route 77 podcast. Red flags can be tricky to navigate, but we hope today's discussion gave you some clarity on what's cultural noise and what's truly worth paying attention to. Remember, no one is perfect, and it's about patterns, not one-off mistakes. As we lean on God's wisdom and extend grace, we can discern what aligns with His plan for our lives. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to share it with a friend, leave a review, or connect with us on social media. Until next time, let's keep our eyes open, our hearts guarded, and remember to live your single life to its fullest.